right, good Sunday afternoon, everybody, and happy Father's Day to all you dads out there. Hopefully, you're out there enjoying it with the kiddos today. We are going to quickly talk about our prospect for rain this evening. Looks pretty slim, just given some of the storms that we had this morning. We'll kind of talk about why here in your forecast, and then just talk about some expected heat coming our way tomorrow and especially on Tuesday. But you can see you got a big line of storms continuing south, big MCS. They're in central and west Texas and the hill country. That again actually started way up here in Kansas and pushed all the way through Oklahoma last night. And this morning we actually had some storms over on the eastern side of the Texas Panhandle. Those actually put down an outflow boundary that you can kind of see here moving all the way into New Mexico and has pushed all the way out of the area, at least the viewing area. That in turn has introduced some higher dew points, but it's kept us fairly cool today. We were expecting to get into the upper 90s, and with the outflow surging as far west as it did, it's held a lot of us in the 80s today. So we may not get to our convective temperature this afternoon. That's going to be one of the big reasons why we probably don't see any storms this afternoon, though we can't completely rule them out. Dew points are pretty high. They're in the 60s. It's just there's not any, there's a pretty strong cap in place, and there's not a whole lot of instability aloft, at least not for the moment. Winds are back from the south, anywhere from 5 to 15 miles an hour, but really thinking it's going to be an extremely conditional threat for any kind of thunderstorm activity this evening. We may have a better chance for an isolated storm or two tomorrow in the early morning hours and maybe in the afternoon again. But marginal risk, they're not going to rule it out at the Storm Prediction Center. We'll probably most likely see storms out here in the land of enchantment, closer to where the outflow boundary is. Storms are already kind of going up near the mountains of the Sangre de Cristos and back into the Sacramento Mountains there in South New Mexico. Anywhere here in the eastern side of the land of enchantment, closer to the counties that we cover, I think it's going to be extremely conditional. And if we get a storm going, and if it does happen, it'll be later this evening, probably after the sun goes down around 9-10 p.m. But we won't rule it out. Here's your planner for tomorrow. It should be warmer on Monday, given that we'll not expect a big band of rain to come across Oklahoma and the East Panhandle in the morning. So no cold pool or outflow boundaries surging across the region. We should get into the upper 90s for those high temperatures. Maybe a few of us in the low 100s. Places like the Paladero Canyon will probably get into the triple digits Monday afternoon. So it could be hot enough. There could be a heat advisory in place tomorrow afternoon down in a PDC. So if you do plan on hiking or going on a bike ride down there, best to do it in the morning rather than late in the day, because they tend to get 5 to 10 degrees warmer than we do here in Amarillo. So just make sure that you take care of yourself and you're, again, not out there during the brutal time of day. And if you are, you've got plenty of fluids to stay hydrated. The recommendation is 1 liter per water per mile that you're going to be walking out there, just because it gets so hot and you are exercising. So just keep that in mind. Tuesday's threat for any kind of storm activity still up there in the northeast, just like tomorrow. Probably more active in Kansas. That ridge of high pressure just a little too close to the panhandles. Can't rule out a storm or two, but the coverage looks like it's going to be much better as you get into southwest Kansas rather than here in the Texas Panhandle. So our model, I don't think is picked up completely on the outflow boundary that surged all the way through the area. I mean, you can see it still has us at 94 degrees, which probably won't happen today. That's why it's got storms firing this evening in the Texas Panhandle. I would be kind of shocked if we get something like that to develop this afternoon. Should be pretty quiet. Now, as we go into the early morning hours, maybe a rogue storm or two in New Mexico, but overall not really expecting much active weather overnight this evening and into Monday morning. We will see highs return to the 90s tomorrow. Some storms will try and fire off the mountains in New Mexico and Colorado. We may get enough flow to push those into our New Mexico counties, but overall should be a quieter day. And then we'll get into the triple digits on Tuesday. You can see big complex of storms up there in Kansas. For us, things should be relatively quiet, and we will be on the hot side. So just make sure you stay hydrated. Probably looking at a lot of heat advisories on Tuesday across the area. So here's the plans for, or at least the pattern for the next week or so. This runs through Friday, June 20th. You can see we've got this ridge, really kind of the same one, but you've got this trough that kind of pushes in and nudges its way into the southwest side of Arizona. That's going to bring some rain to that portion of the desert southwest. But for us, we're going to have this ridge on top of us So any storms that get going should be up and around the high plains. We should see some quieter weather here running into the second half of the week. Dry conditions expected, and probably above average temperatures for the most part expected as well. Now we'll see what this little trough does heading into the weekend and maybe towards that 23rd, 24th, 25th time frame. There are a few models suggesting that we might get a chance for some rain in that window, but there's not much of a consensus for that, and it is well over a week away. So don't want to jump to conclusions this far out from from that next potential weather maker. So here's your 7-day tracker. It's going to be hot tomorrow, going to be very hot on Tuesday. The record high Tuesday is 106. So we're not expecting to tie that yet, but there will be a lot of temperatures between 100 and 108 across the panhandles. So some spotty daily record highs seem plausible. So just make sure you do take care of yourself. If you're going to be out there in the afternoon, drink plenty of water, and would encourage you to do stuff outside in the morning before the heat of the day really starts to crank it up to 10. Wednesday morning, cold front comes through. That'll knock us back down into the 80s and 90s. Juneteenth on Thursday, and then we've got some closer to normal temperatures heading into the weekend, and maybe a very slim chance for rain, but again, not a whole lot of confidence with that, being that it is 6-7 days away. But that is all we've got for you. Again, expecting this evening to be a mostly quiet night, but we will just kind of have to babysit the radar and the satellite to just see if things get going. I'm leaning towards it being a